getting off the elevator, Howard Cosell. Man, he says, Eric Dickerson, how in the hell did you and Craig James spend time down at SMU? What the hell is going on over there? I said, Howard, that's just how we did it. He said, man, he should thank his lucky stars for that.
Hey everybody, what's up? Trey Wingo here. Welcome in to another episode of Half Forgotten History, Season 6. Our guest this week is still the NFL single-season rushing king, Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson. In this episode, we talk about his crazy days at SMU. And I'm telling you, nobody had a wilder ride than the SMU Ponies in the 1980s. And his transition into the NFL and going from one team to another and what really precipitated all of that. Sit back and enjoy this conversation with Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson. Edie, how are you, my friend?
Good. How you doing, Trey?
Doing well. So you and I...
Can I ask you a question first?
Sure.
What's up with the birds in the background?
Well, you know, we're out here in Maui at our place, so I
oh my God!
Outside.
Come on. Can I come?
Yes. Done. Tell you what, I'll spend a week at your place in Calabasas. You come on out here, we'll call it a deal, right?
Okay, all right.
That's the beauty of how we do this. Now you can do it from anywhere. So, as a kid from Sealy, Texas, was there a point where you said to yourself, as a young kid, "Hey, I might be able to do this really well at a really high level for a long time"?
No, never. Never crossed my mind like that. I love sports. I mean, I played all sports, but my things I loved the most was track and football. Those are my two sports, especially being from Texas. You know, being fast is one thing, because back in those days, we didn't have Pop Warner when I came up, you know, not in a small town. And so I didn't get a chance to play organized football till I was in 7th grade, the first time I played. And I won't forget, we played against the Waller Bulldogs. I didn't think about, playing professional football. That just wasn't a thought for me. And then, I just went on through high school. I won't forget a guy named James Abernathy. Told me that I was one of the best athletes he'd ever seen in these parts, which was a shock because I was a young kid and, but he said that may be your way out of this little town. And, by the grace of God, it really was.
Well, it certainly was. And how you got out of that town actually is the stuff of legend. See, I went to Baylor. Okay. So I was at Baylor while you were the Dicker James backfield at SMU. And whenever there's a story about college recruiting or, this scandal at this school or this, whatever, I'm like, hey man, hold up. That's all Pop Warner stuff compared to SMU of the 80s. I mean, you guys were on a different level, right? I mean, it was, people don't understand what the Pony Express was all about.
Man, let me tell you. First of all, we had a great football team over there. And let me tell you,
no question.
Playing Baylor back in those days. Whew, y'all were a tough opponent, a very tough opponent. The stuff that people think of the scandal that went on at SMU, it was no big scandal. Everybody was doing that back then. Just like they're still doing it. They've never stopped. That's the killing part. They act like, oh no, we don't do that. Everybody was doing it. It just depends on, to the level of the degree that you were doing it.
That was the beauty of the old Southwest Conference, is that it was all the Texas schools in Arkansas, and everyone knew what was going on, and they just sort of, it was a thing. Everyone sort of, we turned a blind eye because everybody was in the pot, right?
Yeah. And I think the big thing with us is that, we were a smaller school and we were beating like the Texas and the A&Ms. And you know how it is, Trey. You can't beat Texas. You can't beat A&M. You got to be doing something wrong. Now, Texas, we're not doing anything wrong, but you're doing something wrong. So that's how it was.
Well, one of the great stories about you was that you initially committed to A&M, right?
Yeah, I committed to A&M. I really didn't want to go to A&M. And it wasn't. It was, the commitment was just because of the pressure. Being right there close to Texas A&M, only really like 70, 80 miles away. And to go to A&M, and I was in Aggie town, really Aggie. Sealy's an Aggie town. One of our biggest boosters, their biggest boosters was from right there from Sealy, and that was just the pressure, to go there. And I hate, but I can say it. I mean, 2 reasons I didn't want to go to Texas A&M. I could not stand that uniform. I couldn't that uniform. And I know that sounds crazy. As a kid,
no, I get it.
Yeah, I was a kid. I was a young kid. Yeah. I couldn't stand that uniform, and I didn't like they had year leaders and not cheerleaders. I'm like, I can't get ready for this. There's too many guys here. But I'll say this much here: A&M's a great school. It really is. My cousin, he plays for the Washington football team. He went to A&M.
Ricky Seals Jones.
Yeah, and I kind of encouraged him to go to A&M. I thought that was a good school for him.
For people that don't know, like Yell leaders at A&M, they're male cheerleaders, and they do this thing where they have the pep rally the night before the game. They get all the A&M students and a lot of the alums, and they do this like yell practice for like it's nuts, like it's certifiably insane, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's nothing in College Station, but yet they will have 100,000 people at a football game. It's mind-boggling. It's so many Aggies. I mean, it's so many of them. But yeah, that's something to see. If you've never seen that, you need to see that bonfire that they do.
It is an experience. There's no question about it. So then you don't go to A&M and you go to SMU. And of course, there's the story of the whole gold Trans Am that you had. And Ron Meyer, your coach at SMU, referred to it as the Trans A&M.
A&M, right? The Trans A&M.
People don't understand how good that football team was in the early 80s. Lance McElhaney was a quarterback who went to Highland Park High School right there in Dallas, which is just a pipeline to SMU. And we would go up to SMU and watch you guys practice because you guys were so good. And we're all college kids, and we're all looking at the players' parking lot at SMU. We're like, Porsche, BMW, Mercedes, Trans Am, Corvette. This is the best car dealership parking lot I've ever seen in my life.
We did have some nice cars. I mean, the Porsche belonged to Craig James. Let me tell you that. Craig had the 944 Porsche. I'll tell you that. But yeah, we had all the cars. I mean, it was like a professional parking lot.
For a reason.
That's how, like I say, that's how we did it.
Then, of course, Dale Hansen, the great sportscaster, came out and sort of broke that. And the famous line I'll remember about all that is they had a meeting, and I think the school president said, "Guys, we can't do this anymore." And one of the trustees at SMU said, "That's fine. We won't recruit any more players like this, but you understand, we have a payroll to meet." That became the title of the book.
I heard that story. I heard the story. I saw the interview when Dale Hansen had Coach Bobby Collins and the president, and asking them about the check, and they look at one. Is that? I'm not sure. I mean, look, all they had to do was say no and get up and walk out. I mean, when I saw that, I'm like, oh, guilty as hell. I mean, guilty. Yeah. I'll say that when Ron Meyer left SMU. That crew, Bobby Collins, and Bobby was a nice guy, but they weren't ready for that job. I mean, just being in all honesty, they really were not. They were not equipped for that. Even as our football team, they were not equipped to even coach us as our players. Because, matter of fact, we just talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Craig James and some other guys, is how they had us out there. I mean, hitting full contact, and finally, me and Craig went to him and said, "Hey, look, man, we're gonna get hurt. Because we got a lot of players that's gonna play in the next level." And it was so physical. They were like, "Well, we need to see how y'all play. I mean, y'all don't look like the team that's been advertised." I say, "You will see that team on Saturdays." And that's what we tell you. You'll see that team on Saturdays. Not from Monday to Friday, but Saturdays you'll see that football team. And sure enough, after like a couple of weeks, when we played our first football game, they were like, "Wow, y'all are a different football team." Because we had so much talent on that football team.
For people that didn't see it, and there were some penalties that went along, so you guys didn't get the national exposure that I think a lot of people knew, but everybody in that area knew. Like, how good top to bottom was that SMU team that you were on?
It was so good that a lot of some guys transferred, and if a guy got hurt, the next guy up could play just as well, pretty much. That's how good we were. I mean, we didn't have enough scholarships, because people wanted to come there, because when Ron was there, Ron only recruited the Texas area. He didn't have to go outside the state of Texas, which was big. I mean, everybody wanted to come to SMU, because we were that good. And if you lived in the Dallas area, Houston area, you didn't want to go to U of H, you didn't want to go to A&M or Texas, go to SMU right there. And we were right in the city, just like U of H. We were in the city right there, almost in downtown Dallas in Highland Park.
The guy that sort of broke the scandal, the player, I can't remember his name, but you met him, right, at that restaurant.
David Stanley was his name. Matter of fact,
linebacker, yeah.
It was a linebacker. We were Campese's. I won't forget.
Campese's, yeah.
I happened to be in town, and one of our boosters, my friend George Owens, who was a good guy. George Owens. He asked me would I come to dinner with them that night. They were recruiting a kid. I said, "Yeah, I'll meet you over at Campese's," because that's where they actually recruited me to.
Right.
Went to Camp Easy. Went back, had a room in the back. You know, they do all the recruiting. So had this room in the back.
Come to the back room.
The back room. Go to the back room. He sit next to me. And I'll never forget. He was about, I don't know, 6'1", and he looked at me. He said, "Man, you're not that big, man." And I'm like, "Okay." He said, "Man, I think I could take you." And in my mind, I'm like, "Punk." I'm like, "You're a high school kid." I mean, I'm just kept thinking. He said it again. "Man, I'm telling you, man, I could take you." And I said, "Really?" So after dinner, we get up, we walk out, and I pull Mr. Owens aside, I call him Mr. O, pull Mr. O aside, say, "Mr. O," I said, "Don't recruit this kid." I said, "It's a bad kid." I said, "He's gonna mess up stuff." I told him just like that. Yeah. He said, "Eric, you think?" I said, "I'm telling you." I said, "He's a bad kid, Mr. O." I said, "He's arrogant, he's a bad kid." He said, "Okay, I'll tell the coaches." I said, "Okay." So I walk over to the kid, and I just got close, whispered in his ear. I said, "Man, let me tell you something." I said, "You're a fucking high school kid." I said, "I will bust your young ass up." He said, "I didn't mean that." I said, "I don't mean nothing either." So, and now that was kind of it. And then from that point on, I mean, they kind of told me what happened. You know, the kid got on drugs, and they put him in a rehab, got out, and he wanted his starting job back, and they didn't want to give him his starting job back, so he quit and turned the school in. And you know what, I don't know whose brilliant idea it was to write a check. I mean, I just got to, everybody's out there. I mean, why would you write a check to anybody? I mean, back in those days, like I said, those guys were not equipped for that job, at SMU. And so, from that point on, it just went downhill.
It certainly
and
did.
The funny thing about it, Trey, the killer thing about it is myself and Craig in our class, the 82, 81 class, we get blamed for that. We weren't even there. I was in the pros. I wasn't even there. But, the scandal, it wasn't even there.
No, it happened after you guys were gone, and that was the straw that broke everything wide open on that interview with, like you said, that coach. Oh, that sure looks like my handwriting. I don't know how it got there. That sure looks like my handwriting. That's one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my life.
Isn't that one of the crazy? I'm like, just say no and get up and walk out.
It's just he couldn't stop himself. It just kept coming out like a word salad. It was incredible. All right, why don't we take a quick break, and when we come back, we're here with Eric Dickerson on Half Forgotten History. We'll talk about his pro career and also the book that's out now called Watch My Smoke. Stay with us. We're coming right back with Eric Dickerson. This podcast is presented to you by Visa, a network working for everyone. Overcoming the odds, rewriting the playbook, delivering under pressure. The MVPs of small businesses lead their teams to victory all year long. And Visa is proud to provide playmakers everywhere with more tools to help their business and help them achieve even greater success. Because the more we can empower, the more we all win. Visa, a network giving small businesses tools to grow. All right, back on Half Forgotten History with Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson, who now we're talking about his transition to the pros. And as a running back, you couldn't have gone to a better situation than the Los Angeles Rams at that time and the offense that they ran under John Robinson.
It was the perfect situation. I mean, it really was. I won't forget, John recruited me to come to USC. I came on a recruiting trip to SC. I love my business. It was just too far at the time. And when I showed up on draft day, when they drafted me, in fact, they called me the night before and told me that they were going to draft me. And I had a ticket for me at the airport, be there, my flight left at like 9 o'clock and, be at the airport. So I'm in the car driving to the airport when I heard I got drafted on the radio, me and my best friend. And I'll never forget whoever announced it. He said, the Rams take a quick pick, running back Eric Dickerson from Southern Methodist University. I mean, my best friend, fist pumped and all that kind of stuff. Got to the airport and people congratulated me. Flew out to L.A. And when I showed up at the camp, at the facility, the first thing John Robinson said, "I finally got you," which was funny. It was a funny statement. But yeah, man, that was a great situation with the Rams. I mean, and the thing is that I didn't plan on, being that guy, from the beginning. I mean, it didn't work out. It didn't start off like that. Like we run the split backfield, and Jarrell Thomas was the starter. I forgot the other guy was the starting, and I was like on kind of third team, rotating on second and third team. And we played the Redskins in a, it was a preseason game, and man, they beat us up, and they ran the one back set. And I won't forget John Robinson. We'd tinkered around with the one back set a little bit, and after that, he said we're gonna go to the one back set. He said, "Eric, you're my back." And from that point, I just, that's when I started, and I just kind of took off from there.
I'd say that's an understatement. You set rookie records for most rushing attempts, 390, most rushing yards, 1,1808, most touchdowns rushing, 18, including 2 receiving touchdowns. Yeah, I'd say that worked out pretty well. What was it about the offense in that one back set that worked so well for you specifically? Because you were a different kind of runner, right? Most runners are not as tall, especially back then, as tall as you were. And people were always like, oh, he runs upright. He runs. He doesn't ever look like he's running fast. Well, no one ever tackled you. So, like,
God,
right?
man,
It was that had to be so annoying for you.
That was the thing that was the most annoying out of everything. Is I'm not running hard. I'm not running fast. I make it look too easy. Man, I got so sick of hearing that. I mean, I just say, I'm not the choo-choo train kind of guy. I say, that's just not me. I forget, one day I was in practice and I ran it was a counter Trey. We switched to 46 and 47 gap. The guard and tackle pulled and I was behind him and, trying to stay a distance behind him. And John Robinson blew was stop. He said, Eric, you got to stop jogging, son. I said, Coach, I'm not jogging. I said, I'm not jogging. He said, look, this is the NFL. You can't jog. I said, I'm not jogging. He said, this is full speed. I'm like, okay. He said, run it again. So ran it again and say, Eric, I'm telling you. I said, Coach, I'm out here running full speed. I said, I tell you what, get out here and try to catch me. So it was our I think it was our third or fourth game. We played the New York Jets, and I had an 85-yard run. And after the run, John Robinson came over to me and said, son, I guess you wasn't jogging because it looked like he was jogging me too.
But it is funny. I don't understand how people thought you could do what you're doing if you weren't going full speed.
Man, it's some people, I guess, just makes it look easy. And it was a gift. It was a gift, Trey. It was a gift that God gave me. It was how I ran the football. They tried to get me to get all low. Only time I got real high was when I was in open field. It was very rare a guy got a shot in my chest area. I mean, they just didn't. I mean, and I was a big back, being 6'3", 225. I was a big back. I won't forget we played the Detroit Lions, and this was my rookie season. And they came in town, and I come on the field. I passed some defensive backs, and I'll never forget it. They said, "Damn, that's a running back. That's the biggest running back I've ever seen." So I was gifted.
Yeah, listen, your response to that, hey, sorry, I'm just so good. That's on you. That's a you problem. It's not a me problem. But I tell you, growing up as a Cowboys fan, and every Cowboys fan will know exactly what I'm talking about. That 1985 playoff game, you took my soul. Like that entire game, you sort of racked 248 rushing yards in that game. All I think of in that entire game is watching Michael Downs and Ron Fellows, the safety in the corner of the Cowboys, trying to tackle you, and they had no chance. I mean, you must have felt like you could do anything that day.
Man, you're correct. First of all, I hate Cowboys, because on that, we scrimmaged the Cowboys out here. And I'll never forget, John Robinson told me later. I mean, because I was so nervous. We scrimmaged, and I forgot all the plays. I got in, and I couldn't remember the plays. And they called a play, and I said, Benny, what do I do? He said, you're getting the ball. I'm like, which side? I didn't even know which side. He said, what's wrong? I mean, I was panicked. He said, go to the sideline. So I went to the sideline and was talking to my coach. He said, Eric, settle down. Just settle down. And he calling plays, and I said, I don't remember. I can't remember. He said, just settle down. So I got back in the game. People finally said, okay, start calling plays. I remember. I got back in the game. I had a really good game. And Tom Landry told John Robinson before the game, he said, you made a mistake drafting that guy. He said, he runs too tall. He's not going to last long. And now when I heard that, I'm like, oh, I'm going to stick it to them all the time. And after that scrimmage, he said, he might be all right. I always love sticking it to them. You're right, man. You said it right. That day, every cut was the right cut. They could not stop me. It was one of those days.
Well, it was one of those days, and it turned into one of those seasons where you still hold the record, 2,105 rushing yards. What does that mean to you that record has stood up for so long?
I think it means a lot more now because when I broke it, I thought I'd do it again. I thought I could break it again. It just shows how hard it is to get to 2,000 yards. I mean, I had, I think, 2 other 1,800-yard seasons. It's very difficult to get there. It means a lot to me as a player. People ask me all the time about somebody breaking my record. Do I want to break it? No, I don't want to break it. Did they break it? They break it. I mean, I'm not going to be, whoa, go break that record. Yay. Man, come on. I'm not that guy. And I'm not the guy saying, oh, man, he broke my record. Oh, Jesus. No, I'm not that guy either. But you want to hold these records as long as you can because they're hard to come by. I mean, and that record I think has stood for 37 years, something like that. So it has stood the test of time. And I didn't think it would last that long, but it really has.
Adrian Peterson came close a couple of years ago. Derrick Henry came close a couple of years ago. Do you think Derrick Henry's the guy that's eventually going to take it?
Derrick Henry's a guy I think that could possibly break that record. I mean, he's that kind of back. They run the ball enough. They have that kind of offensive line. He's physical. And the guys don't tackle like they tackle when we played. I mean, they don't hit. I think they make business decisions when it comes to Derrick Henry too. Like, hey, this guy's 6'4" and I'm 5'10", 5'8". I'm gonna pay. I'm gonna jump on his back. So if it's a guy out there that could possibly break that record, I think it would be him.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because people thought you were too tall to be a running back.
Yeah.
And people look at Derrick Henry and think, well, he's too big to be a running back. Yet he's the guy that might eventually take down the mark that you set.
You know, when I met Derrick Henry like 2 years ago, and I didn't know how big he was, but man, I'm like, man, I said, you a big guy. I mean, I'm a big guy. I'm big, but he's bigger than me. I mean, he's like an Autobot, like big all the way from the top, like thighs, calves, ankles, toes, everything just big. I'm like, man, you're a big guy. He's an impressive looking athlete.
He really is, and we'll see what happens with him coming back as they make their run into the postseason. Then you were part of one of the most famous three-way trades of all time, and it was a remarkable deal that sent Cornelius Bennett out of Indianapolis to Buffalo, where he went on to have a great career as part of 4 straight
Super Bowl
in Buffalo that went to the Super Bowl. A lot of picks and things go that way to the Rams, and you end up in Indianapolis with another one of your former coaches, Ron Meyer.
Yeah, man, I love Ron Meyer. You know, my former coach, and these people. Ron passed away, I think, just almost 2 years ago. That's the reason I went to SMU, because of Ron. That's the reason I wound up in Indianapolis, because of Ron. You know, that situation over there with the team and him was a good situation for a minute, for a little while. It wasn't even his fault. You know, it was just a situation where it was a different NFL back then. You know, guys, we had no rights, we had no free agency, and
None, like zero.
We had no free agents, no kind of rights. But and we just they wouldn't give him the team he really needed. Because I can tell you one thing about Ron Meyer. Ron Meyer knew talent. Oh, there was no doubt he could get the talent and get you to play for him, because he was that kind of coach. He was a rah, give you that speech, on a Monday, and you ready to play right now. But like I said, it was a trade that, to me, did I want to go to Indy? No, I didn't want to be traded. I mean, I wanted to stay in LA my whole career. I mean, when I left the Rams, where I really wanted to go was the Redskins, because my cousin Dexter Manley was at the Redskins. And he called me like a couple of weeks before the trade took place. He said, Eric, man, I heard we're trying to get you. I said, man, I know. He said, I never forget the reply. They ain't gonna let that happen. That's too much like right. Because I said I'd have tore it up over there.
That was the counter trade was their play.
The counter trade.
That was the signature Joe Gibbs running play.
And that we took it from them. The Rams, we took the trade from them and called it 46 and 47 gap. But I mean, it was some good years in Indy. But at the end, it just fell all apart.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like in a way you were sort of a trailblazer for what we see now, because it was about, one of the reasons that the trade happened to Indy, and one of the reasons that it ended in Indy, is you wanted to have more control over your contractual situation.
Man, yeah, Trey. The thing about that is, and I was so vilified for it. I was made just the bad guy, like I'm doing something crazy wrong. And when you look back at my contract, man, it was laughable. It really was. I was the second pick in the draft behind John Elway, and I was making $150,000 base. I mean, that's what I was making. Guys, 3 and 4 rounders making more than I was making. And I had a $600,000 signing bonus I had to pay back. I had to pay back to the team. I mean, it was just a bad contract all the way around, and they wouldn't do anything. I was, I went to John Shaw. I said, John, I'll tell you this much here. This was after my 4th year, I think. I said, I am so confident in my ability in our offensive line that I'm willing to go year by year, just a year-to-year contract. If I tell them, if I lead the league in rushing, if I have over 1,500, think about that. I said 1,500 yards. If I have over 1,500 yards, no, 1,500. That's like 1,500. If I have 1,500 yards, you pay me like Elway, like I want I said, give me $1 million. I said, no, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that. So at that point, man, it was just it was useless. But like I say, I mean, I was the bad guy.
It's funny. It's like anything else, right? Like now we have this NIL in college, and we're just acknowledging what's always happened. We're just trying to pay people over the table as opposed to under the table. And I think now people understand maybe a little better that you can outperform your contract, and that's not a terrible thing to say. I'm better than what you're paying me for. Pay me what I'm worth. I think people are receiving that information now a lot more than they did back in the 80s.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's no doubt. It's just like I'll use you for example. If you start off with like 10 listeners now, all of a sudden I've got 10 million listeners, and I'm like, wow, this guy's blowing it up. We've got to pay him. I mean, I'm like, oh no, we're gonna keep paying you that 25,000 that you agreed to. It's like, no, that's not right. But yes, I mean, I think now, because you know what, it's changed a lot, and it's good and bad with the social media era. I mean, back then we had no social media. If they wrote something about you, and they wrote a lot of bad stuff about me, made up stuff about me, and people believed it. It was true. I mean, it's got to be true. It's in the paper, and they would say,
Right.
"Well, they can't write it if it's not true." Well, that's not true at all. Because I won't forget, a writer wrote one article. He's put some of the things that I said in there, and I'll never forget. He had quotations. Well, let me tell you what he really means. I'm like, okay, this guy's a mind reader now. So, it was a different era back in those times.
It certainly was. And now players, for the most part, you see basically using their own platform and their own sort of social media and however they want to get it out there to get their site out of it. And I think, quite frankly, that's a benefit for everybody because I know that traditional media people don't like it, but at the end of the day, it allows you the opportunity to say, no, this is exactly what I meant, or this is what I was trying to say, as opposed to what you were interpreting for me.
100%. You said it right. This is what I was saying. This is what I said. And I didn't say that. This is what I was trying to say. You took my words and turned it around. I mean, it's good and bad because some guys, they do some dumb things on the social media pages. But I really think it's really helped the NFL, the NBA, sports in general. I mean, because it makes you more relevant. You get a chance to sometimes get to know the person. Not by what somebody's writing about them. If I can see you, Trey Wingo, I listen to you and I watch you. Man, I like him. I like what he's talking about. I like his take on things. His take is fair. I mean, for me, I think a lot of athletes just want fairness. I mean,
Right.
that's what you want. You want to be treated fairly. I always say when people would make these comments and like you should throw stuff at us, and we come on the field. I say, how about if that was your son or your daughter? How would you feel then? You'd have a different take on it when it's somebody you know and you love. It's different. And I think people forget that, we have moms and dads too. We have kids too.
I'm glad you said that because as we're taping this pod, it's what's called Black Monday in the NFL, where all the coaches are being fired. And I know there's a lot of people that want to get that news out there and generate that information first. But at the end of the day, like you said, each one of these coaches, like the players, they have families, and especially the assistant coaches, because when a coach gets fired, normally that head coach will find another job somewhere else, unless he's Urban Meyer, which is a whole different thing we can go into, but we don't want to. But it's all the assistant coaches that aren't making that kind of money. The offensive line coach or the strength and conditioning coach, and now they got to uproot their families and find work. I'm glad you said that because I've always tried to put that in that perspective. Like, yeah, let's report what happened, but not make it this like joyous thing that someone is like lost their job, even if they were terrible at it, because there's a lot of transition that has to take place after that.
It's a lot because, like you said, it's just not that coach. It's like when something happens to a family member, say passes away, or some tragic. It's not just that person, that family member. It affects everybody down behind them. It really does, and it's the same thing when and I don't know if that's a good analogy, but even coaches, when a head coach is fired, he's got assistant coaches, he's got strength coaches, he's got doctors, he's got a whole plethora of people that all of a sudden pretty much are gonna lose their jobs too. And let's say I'm from California, then I moved to Green Bay. Now, where am I going? Am I going back to California? Am I going to Washington? I mean, that's why I never wanted to be a coach. I mean, I never wanted that job. I think that's a tough job. I mean, it's a tough job, and it's something I never wanted to do.
It's got to be in your DNA because there's no other reason to do it because it'll suck the life right out
Out of you, right?
But from your perspective, and I think the hardest transition for someone, like you said, and because of your running style, people never thought you were running hard. If you're so naturally good at something, the end has got to be difficult, right? When did you start looking at film and thinking, wait a minute, that can't be me?
You can kind of tell, I mean, like, I could have still played a few more years, but my neck wouldn't allow, my neck would not allow me to play because I had a neck injury. The guys that sometimes you get around the corner that they couldn't catch you, now they can kind of catch, they can clip your foot. I was still fast, but you know what I didn't have? That acceleration that I had when I first came to the league. I mean,
right.
My acceleration was like from 0 to 60, like pow. I mean, that's what I was most proud of. I mean, I think about I got a 9-year-old son, and he is like super fast. I mean, and I'm like, wow, he's got my acceleration. I mean, that's the thing that I noticed that went away. Wasn't that I wasn't fast anymore, but that acceleration. And in the National Football League, you need that acceleration. I mean, speed kills. I mean, it really does. If you're fast and you're a good player or a great player, man, that speed takes you to a whole different level. And that was one thing that I noticed that I was just starting to lose was my acceleration. And, and I had the neck injury, and then that was it.
It was a hell of a career, no question about it. But then, of course, you have to make the transition to what you do after football. And we'll take our second break here. And when we come back with Eric Dickerson, we'll talk about the book that he's got out now and what he did after his life in the NFL. Coming right back. Stay with us. Welcome to our newest weekly segment, Trey's Trends, presented for the people by Caesars Sportsbook. Look, Caesars Sportsbook is the greatest betting app of all time. Why? Because Caesars makes everyone feel like an emperor. When you place your bets, win or lose, you earn more with Caesars Rewards. Dining, getaways, stays, so many perks, people. You see, let me explain what that means. In our world, Caesar isn't the only emperor. You see, there's no apostrophe in that spelling. Why is that? Because everyone who downloads the app will be treated like an emperor. We are all Caesars. Caesars Sportsbook is the only sportsbook app with Caesars Rewards, which means win or lose, you earn reward credits every time you wager. Redeem them for things like sports tickets, dining, getaways, and so much more. Presented for the people by Caesars Sportsbook. Here's a peek in what you can get watching Trey's Trends each week on the Caesars Sportsbook social media and YouTube channels. Super Wildcard Weekend ended up being not so super. 4 of the 6 games were decided by 16 or more points, and there was at least a 14-point lead in every game. Favorites went 5-1 straight up and against the spread, with the Niners being the only dog to win outright at Dallas, but Dallas certainly helped. That's a far cry from previous wildcard rounds, where the 4 seasons before that, underdogs were 15-3 against the spread with 8 outright wins. None of those games were decided by more than 14 points. On to the divisional round now, where all the home teams are favored, but none by more than 5.5 points. Over the last 3 seasons, favorites are 10-2 straight up and 8-4 against the spread in the divisional round. The 2 dogs to win outright over that time frame, the 2019 Titans, who defeated the Ravens and then lost to the Chiefs in the AFC title game, and the 2020 Bucs, who beat the Saints and then went on to win it all. The Bucs continue their Super Bowl title defense when they play at home Sunday against the Rams, who are getting 3 points. Find more Trey's Trends at Caesar Sports on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on YouTube, with new episodes dropping every Friday. 21 or older, 18 or older in D.C. must be physically present in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, Maryland, Michigan, Nevada, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, or Washington, D.C. Sports betting is void in Georgia, Hawaii, Ohio, and Utah, and other states where prohibited. Know when to stop before you start. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, crisis counseling and referral services can be accessed by calling 1-800-GAMBLER, that's 1-800-426-2537, or in West Virginia, visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Colorado, D.C., Nevada, call 1-800-522-4700. Indiana, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. Iowa, call 1-800-BETS-OFF. Louisiana, call 1-877-770-STOP. In Michigan, call 1-800-270-7117. Tennessee, call or text TN Redline at 1-800-889-9789. Virginia, call 1-888-532-3500. Copyright 2002, Caesars Entertainment. Gambling problem in New York? Call 1-877-8-HOPE-NEW YORK or text HOPE New York 467-369. All right, back with Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson on Half Forgotten History. So the transition, you did a bunch of different stuff after you played, including a couple of years working Monday Night Football. What was that like for you?
Terrible. I love the crew, but I was I love working with Al and everybody. I was horrible at it. I mean, horrible. I wasn't ready for that job. Giving those quick little hits, and talking about stuff quickly. my mind wasn't firing that quick. I need to kind of get warmed up and talk about football itself. But I was bad at it. But I enjoyed working with the crew. I mean, really, Al and them, they made me feel right at home, and um, I really liked working with them. When I was let go, I'm like, oh, cool. I just felt like
Thank you.
Thank you, because I didn't want to say, you know what? I'm just
Yeah.
gonna call it. I'm gonna call it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call it on myself. I'm just gonna say I'm gonna bow out gracefully. So
You've done some acting. You've done a bunch of different stuff. I know you're back heavily involved with the Rams now that they're back in Los Angeles. What did it mean for you to have them come back to LA?
It meant a lot for the team to come back to LA. I won't forget. I was in Chicago. I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, and I went to a game with my friend Richard Dent. And man, it was great to see, hey, Richard, man, the 85 Super Bowl. They saw me, oh, Eric Dickerson, oh, yeah, we got you. I'm like, yeah. And I was like, man, I said, man, this is great, man. I'm happy for you. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, Eric, man, if the Rams ever come back to LA, you'll see what this is like. He said, you deserve that. And when they came back, he was so right, man. I mean, it's good to be back. Have the team back, work for the organization, go to the games, and people acknowledge you. It's like being reborn again. It's not like playing anymore. I don't want to play football anymore, but I've always liked fans. Because the fans was make us great, and so it's been really good. I got to say.
Well, it's awesome that the way they've embraced you as part of the legacy, bringing that team back to LA. And you also, as we said, the book is out now called Watch My Smoke, which, by the way, is the greatest title of all time. But how did you come up with that title, and what do you want people to know about the book?
The title was because of a good friend of mine. He was like a dad to me. And he was a guy that I'll say he was like a spiritual leader for me, really. And anytime he would say something, Trey, and I'm not joking, anytime he would say it, it would happen, just like he said it. I won't forget when he talked about, I talked to him about my getting drafted. I didn't know about me getting drafted. And he said, Eric, what team do you? Because he said, I already know a lot about football. He said, but what team would you like to play for? And I told him, I said, man, I really like to play for the Rams because I really like that helmet. And I just like the Rams helmet. I like the helmet, I like the uniform. He said, okay. I'll never forget what he said. He said, that's where you're going to end up going now. And sure enough, Trey, boom, that's where I ended up going to the Rams. When I ran for 2,000 yards, I'll never forget my first year. Because he said, you're going to do things that people had never seen before. He said, I'm telling you, there are people that never, and they may never see it again. My first year, I ran for 1,800 yards. I said, because I wanted that 2,000 yards my first year. And he said, you might not get it your first year. He said, but I guarantee you, you'll get it your second year. Now, somebody say that, you're like, oh, okay.
And whatever.
And and boom, I got it my second. And his little phrase to me, boy, watch my smoke. Watch my smoke. and he told me, Eric, he said, one day, he said, I won't be here. He said, but you're going to write a book. And I said, call him Stanley LeBlanc. I said, if I do Stanley, I said, I'm going to name it I'm going to call it what you always say, watch my smoke. So it's in homage to my friend and like my father mentor, Stanley LeBlanc. That's why I call it Watch My Smoke.
Is there stuff in the book that people don't know and haven't been talked about your career?
Oh, most definitely. It's a lot of stuff in my book that people don't know. I mean, a lot of people don't know that I'm adopted. I was legally adopted, by my great aunt. I quit football. I mean, I quit football. I mean, I had a coach in high school that I just called like I said. I mean, he was racist. I mean, he had never coached black kids before, and he came. And then I grew up in segregation. Like when I grew up in segregation. I went to the black school for a while. And then when he came to coach us, came from East Texas. I'll never forget it. Man, we just didn't like him. And it just wasn't me. It was the stuff he was doing to us, things he did to just the black kids. And even the white kids noticed it. They said, man, that's not right. I mean, when they noticed, it's a problem. And so my sophomore year, I quit. I quit football. I'm like, oh, man, I can't do this. No, I can't deal with him. Matter of fact, all of us quit. All the black players quit. And then he came to our house individually, one by one, and in the summer, and talked to us, each player. And I decided to go back. But before that, a guy named James Abernathy, talking about guys that kind of changed the way I looked at sports, and my life could have been different. There was a guy that lived in another town, 12 miles away from a town called Brookshire Royal. He came over. He said, Mr. Dickerson, how you doing? He said, hey, how you doing, Shaq? Called him Shaq. How you doing, Shaq? He loved sports. He loved sports. He said, you mind if I take Eric and talk to him? She said, no, take him and talk to him. So I got in the car with him. He said, Eric, he said, man, I heard you quit football. I said, yeah, man, I quit. I said, that coach, man, I said, he's racist. And he said, he just talked to me. He said, Eric, let me ask you a question, son. He said, well, what do you see here in this town? I said, Shaq, I said, man, there ain't nothing in this town, man. He said, Eric, he said, that's true. It's nothing here, son. He said, let me tell you this. He said, I'm an older man. He said, but you are one of the best athletes we've ever seen in these parts. Now, that in itself, I'm a sophomore, I'm 16 years old. I'm like, in these parts? He said, Eric, I'm telling you. He said, go back and play football, son. He said, that may be your way out. He said, not come over to Brookshire. We'd love to have you there. So I went back, told my mother what he said, and she said, Eric, said, I don't like you quitting. I don't like football, but I don't like you quitting. She says, I wish you would go back and play. And so I went back and we played. We won a state championship. And I tell everybody, in spite of the coach, it wasn't a feel-good story. I still did not like him. I won a state championship. About 3 years ago, a guy called me, a guy named Dana. He said, hey, Eric. I said, what's up, Dana? I said, good, man. He said, man, I got somebody who want to holler at you. I said, okay. Gets on the phone. He said, hey, Eric. Soon as I heard his voice, it was Ralph Harris, that's coach. I heard it. My heart started beating fast. Now think about it. I'm 50. I think I was 57 years old. And I hear his voice, and it just takes me back. I said, how's it going, Ralph? He said, I'm good, Eric. I said, good, man. He said, Eric, I just want to say something to you. I said, yep. He said, man, I want to see all the good stuff you've done. He said, you had a great NFL career. He said, I want to apologize to you and all the guys for how I treated you guys. I said, man, Ralph, I said, man, thanks for saying that. I appreciate that. Because, Trey, when you're a kid, kids, we do stuff. And when you look back, you're like, maybe I was wrong about that. But I knew I wasn't wrong. I knew we wasn't wrong. I mean, we wasn't right all the time. But I knew I had him pegged right. And so for him to call and tell me, he apologized, it didn't mean a lot. But, it is what it is. And it happened. But like I said, it's a lot of stories like that. It's a lot of funny stories, and there's a lot of funny ones in there also. I'll tell you this story right quick. When I first got in the NFL, I couldn't wait for Howard Cosell to do one of my games. I'm like, man, I want to do one of my games. So we play Atlanta on a Monday Night Football. And we show up at the hotel, and I come downstairs, and I'm going to go grab a bite to eat. As I come on I'm getting off the elevator, Howard Cosell. Man, he says, Eric Dickerson, SMU. I said, how's it going? He said, I said, it's going good, Howard. Let me ask you a question, Eric. How in the hell did you and Craig James split time down at SMU? What the hell was going on over there? I said, Howard, that's just how we did it. He said, man, he should thank his lucky stars for that. He said, I can't wait to see you play tomorrow night, man. I will never forget. That was one of the most exciting moments for me, just to meet. I'm like, this is Howard Cosell. So, I got a bunch of stories in the book.
There's a whole generation that does not understand the significance of those two words. Like as a kid growing up, when he would do the halftime highlights on Monday Night Football, and then you saw Dickerson bursting through the line, gracefully running towards the goal line. I mean, it was just, he had that thing, man.
You wanted to hear it. I couldn't wait. Yeah. I'm like, am I going to be on the highlights? Am I going to be on the highlights of Monday Night Football?
A little different era, but because you can get everything everywhere right now. And the book is out called Watch My Smoke. Exactly. So go pick it up wherever you can pick up your books. Hey, on behalf of all football fans, I'm glad you didn't quit or you returned to 16, because look at all the things you've accomplished, including being the unofficial mayor of Calabasas, California, telling Justin Bieber to slow his ass down a few years ago when he was driving through there too fast.
Well, thanks, Trey. I appreciate it, man.
It was a pleasure having you on. Your career was amazing, even though you took my soul in that 85 playoff game against the Cowboys. I'll get over it eventually, maybe one of these days. Thanks for being with us on the show, man. I appreciate it very much.
No problem. Hey, man, enjoy your trip to Maui. I'm jealous. Just know I'm jealous.
Come on.
Okay, man. Take care.
Once again, our thanks to Eric Dickerson for joining us, and check out his book. It's out now, Watch My Smoke. What a great title. Speaking of great titles, our next guest has one of the greatest titles of all time, or a nickname. It was the Princess of Darkness. Longtime front office executive for the Raiders, Amy Trask, joins us, talking about her journey, how she became one of the most prominent women in the history of football, and her transition from being an executive to a killer broadcaster on CBS, something she admits she never thought she would do. That's next week on Half Forgotten History. We'll see you then.